For Alvarez, in Berkeley in the 30s and 40s, like it was almost like a competitive disadvantage if you didn't have the Nobel Prize. Like he was very competitive and also realized like it would be a huge deal for him to win the Nobel Prize because he wants freedom, he wants access to resources, he wants to be able to raise money. And so he's jealous professionally of people who get it before him when he heard that Ed McMillan, who was basically his nemesis at Berkeley, had won the Nobel Prize. Like he had to go home and lie down. Clearly, it was still an issue.
Yeah.
And Alvarez eventually wins it for the bubble chamber. But he's not the inventor of the bubble chamber. Like a guy named Don Glaser was the person who came up with like the original concept, which in Glaser's hands was about an inch like in diameter. And Alvarez is the one who says, no, we have to scale this thing up to actually be able to do useful physics with it. And so he expects that when they hand out the Nobel Prize for the invention of the bubble chamber, that he and Glaser are going to share it. But then in 1960, he gets a call from Glenn Seaborg who says, have you heard the news? Glaser won it alone. And it is crushing. I mean, Alvarez says that he goes downstairs because they're both at Berkeley at this point, and he goes downstairs and everyone's like popping champagne and like, but no one had told him because no one wanted to be the one to tell him that he had essentially been found wanting. And so I would say at this point, he's like, well, that was it. That's my chance. It's not going to happen. I know for a fact that it was like emotionally devastating. But then 8 years later, and he wins the Nobel Prize almost for like, the actual achievement that the prize recognizes is not super interesting. It's like discovering these three particles that were discovered because of the bubble chamber. But it really was like a recognition of his efforts to kind of expand it, to scale it up. And so I think, my understanding is that the Nobel Committee realized they made a mistake in not honoring him earlier. And so they were trying to find a pretext, like a good reason to give him the Nobel Prize, like a belated prize to recognize the achievements. But it is true that, he won the Nobel Prize for what some people would say is like one of the least interesting things that he ever accomplished.